What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mike Roach podcast. As you can see here, once again, Alvin Boogie Williams. You all know him. We're talking about a Toronto Raptors legend here. Okay. We're talking about a guy who put in the work, who you see now as an analyst doing big things, repping T Dot always. Alvin, what is going on, my brother?
What's up, my brother? How you feel?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How about you?
I can't complain, man. It's summertime, watching some of these playoff games, getting to the conference finals. So, you get flooded with a bunch of games. Now it settles down a little bit. So you concentrate on a few games, get to analyze it a little bit more, pick it apart more. But I'm excited about these matches.
Listen, I love what I'm seeing, by the way, in these conference finals. I love seeing new teams, the Pacers and the Knicks. They're going to be clashing. I'm glad to see that. And now Minnesota and OKC. I'm very happy for what I'm seeing. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But today, we're coming with something different. I want to kind of hear the Alvin Williams story here. Okay. Now, Alvin, just in case you're wondering, I'm looking down. My camera is here, but I'm looking at you on the screen here. Okay. Just in case you're wondering there. All right. So I want to know more about my boy Alvin Williams. And you see, because I'm around you all the time now because of work, which is great because you're awesome to be around. But I'm wondering, what do I really know about Alvin Williams here? What do I really know? So that's what I'm coming to find out. Okay. And, typically when you do shows like this, you see a podcast or you see a show, and the guy who's doing it does a lot of research and digs into your background. I didn't do any of that. Okay. I'm going a little Larry King style here. I'm just going to ask you questions and you can let me know. And feel free to jump in, say whatever you want to say. This is a conversation. All right. Because I'm genuinely interested here. There's going to be a bunch of people watching this and listening to this. They're going to be interested too. But I got to know. Let's start it off here, first of all. Alvin, you were born and grew up where?
Philadelphia, PA. Mount Airy section of Philadelphia, middle class section, on the northern side of Philadelphia. So it's called Mount Airy, PA, or Mount Airy section of Philadelphia.
How long did you grow up? You grew up there your entire life?
Life, man. Whole life I grew up there. My family, mostly my family's from an area called North Philadelphia. And I'm sure, like, knowing the Kyle Lowry, you hear a lot of Philadelphia. That was part of his introduction, the guy from North Philly and all that. But that's where my family's from. My mom and dad was born and raised in Philadelphia. My dad was born in Florida, but at a young age, he was sent here to Philadelphia, and they both were in North Philly. So I have huge families on both sides. North Philly, where I have all my cousins and all of those things. But my sisters and I, we were raised in the Mount Airy section. I guess we moved on up a little bit, so to speak, back in that was part of my dad thing. Always tried to elevate the family and elevate the way we lived and how we approach life. So moving to Mount Airy was, I guess, quote unquote, a step up from North Philly.
So who was living in your household as a child? You have siblings as well?
Two older sisters, Alvina and Doreen. Whole family, except for Doreen, got Alvina, Alvin, Senior, and Alfreda was my mom. So we had a bunch of Al's, and then you got my youngest sister is Doreen. So, but we all of us grew up in the house. 5 of us in that household.
Were they all athletes as well?
No, not well. Doreen ran track early on, and she was pretty good. She was actually one of the first that she's traveled. She would go out of the city and out of the state to go to track meets. Alvina, she played a little bit of tennis, but nothing much. I think from the athletic side, I just played longer and played more sports. But my dad played sports, but pretty much that was it. We didn't come from like a crazy household of athletes.
Mm-hmm. So your parents, I want to know about your mom.
Man.
First. Tell me about her.
Man, my mom was the real like she wouldn't bite her tongue. She wouldn't bite her tongue for anything. She was the disciplinarian. She was the one that was home all the time. My dad was a cop, so my dad had crazy hours. So my mom
Your dad was a cop?
Yeah, my dad was a cop, but his schedule, my mom had to be home. So my mom was a seamstress when I was a young seamstress. So that was her thing. She worked at a company where they manufactured military or clothing for the military. So She was a seamstress, and she would come home, get off the bus, and take care of the household. And she was a rock. Even to her last days, she had health issues, but she was just that person. Didn't show much emotion. Funny, funny woman, made things lighthearted until it wasn't lighthearted. And she was the type,
Mhm.
come to the family, you're going to get the real, the raw, uncut version of Alfreda Patricia Williams, and that's just who she was. But a loving person, and then with her hardness and her rock foundation, she was very giving. Like, she would meet somebody on the street and give them the phone number and stuff like that, and keep in touch with me. And it was amazing to see her interact with people like that she didn't know, and then people she knew. So she was a giving woman, but she was hard as nails.
What's one of the most important lessons you think you've learned from her?
Oh, my mom would give me sayings, dog, before I would leave the house. Pretty much, if I was going to play a sport, if I was going to school, if I was just going out. And one thing she always, don't take no wooden nickels. And that was pretty much her way of saying, don't take no BS. And I never really understood what that meant until I said, Mom, what's a wooden nickel? She said, have you ever seen a wooden nickel? I said, no. She said, yeah, because it's some BS. Don't take none of it. So she was one, like, she would give her lessons through sayings. But again, it was so much, man. It was so much that she provided for me, but it was more of so this, just seeing how my mom and dad were in the house, but she held the house down. Like,
Mhm.
time where a lot of my friends from the neighborhood, their fathers weren't around, right? I
Yeah.
my block where I was the only one. Me and another family had the father around in the house.
Mhm.
Mom really held it down strong. Didn't take any nonsense, didn't take any mess. And that's pretty much just watching how she approached life every day. So it's many lessons, but that one, don't take no one nickels. That one right
I gotta remember that one. And so you said now your dad it was a cop.
there. Hmm.
What was that like to have um a father as a cop? Because you said there was just a few of you that had your dads there. A lot of the kids didn't have their dads with them in the household. I know how that feels because I was the same, right? But not just to have your dad, but to have your dad as a police officer as well. So I'm sure he was very disciplined and militant. What was that like for you growing up?
It was cool. And that's back in the day when I was growing up in my neighborhood. The cops were like cool guys, right? The cops weren't the opposition like how we see it now in society, especially in America. Like, the cops are, the guys that people are, you looked for cops for safety, and just
Mm,
house. You always felt safe. You always felt protected. But when I was young, my dad was a beat cop. He was a cop in uniform. But when I got older, he uh he was a DA. He was a narc. So he was an
mm,
detective. So it was cool, and it was interesting to see how he maneuvered. Like, my dad would have his suit on, have his pants on. One day he have a big beard. Next day it's cut off. So he was like in disguise. He would drive in different cars, unmarked cars. So it was interesting to see how he maneuvered around as an undercover detective. So just that, you start to see the movies and stuff like that with drug busts and all of these things. I'm like, damn, my dad was involved with some of those things. So that was kind of cool. But he was still around. He still made himself available. You still felt his presence even if he wasn't home at that time. So very, and you said militant, wasn't a militant guy. It was a no
mm,
nonsense guy, but he was a very laid back guy. You would not even know he was in the room if he just wasn't a 6'5", dark skin, afro. Like, he was a figure, but he wasn't.
mm,
He only spoke when it was necessary, and he would observe a lot. He would just observe and listen to people, and he just had that innate ability to that. I think that helped him with his investigative skills like that. So
mhm.
very, very prominent figure in the household. All my friends were scared to death of him, but for no reason, because again, he didn't say much. He just was a no nonsense guy, but he also was very laid back.
Mhm. And one of the most important things you learned from him.
Man, work ethic, but it was more like, being true to yourself. Um, just make taking care of your responsibilities. He was a guy that was right on time with everything. Um, Again, no nonsense, but he didn't have to talk a lot. He was quiet,
Mhm.
but you knew he protected the family. Anything, he would risk anything for his family and take care of his family. Because my dad came from a situation where, again, he was 12 years old when he was sent from Florida to Philadelphia, and he never knew his dad. He never knew where his family in Florida really, pretty much, I won't say disowned him, but they sent him here in Philadelphia. And one of the stories was when he was in Philadelphia, when he was in Florida, they sent him to Philadelphia in the dead winter. He had shorts and sandals on, coming from
Yeah.
so he didn't really have that family structure, but the way he conducted himself and led our family, it was amazing to see because he didn't have that example. He just knew what he wanted for his family. He always told me if I ever had any children, make sure I was better to them than he was to me. And I used to always find that mind blowing because I'm like, yeah, I can't be no better than you were as a father and as a man, as a strong figure in our house. So he was just that guy as well.
It's interesting that you bring that up because my dad kind of says the same thing. My dad was also a guy who never knew his dad as well. He had with him maybe a couple times, um, maybe a few times as they got older. But I don't think they really had a relationship. It wasn't anything good or anything like that. And, as you get older, sometimes when you're younger, you kind of give your parents grief for certain things in life. Maybe some things that you thought they could have done better or whatever the case may be. But as you get older, you kind of realize that your parents are, how's the best way to put this? You don't really understand when you're younger that your parents are human beings trying to figure it out.
Mhm,
Like when I was older, I understood that. Right. So I got upset. My parents were divorced. My parents were divorced very early, right after I was born.
mhm,
So I never had a great relationship with my dad. It's getting better now as I'm older and I have my own kids, right? But learning a bit of my dad's story, you start to realize like, all right, this guy was 18 when he had my sister. My mom was pregnant at 17 when she was having my sister. Um, and it's like, damn, they were really young, didn't understand things as they get older. But hearing those stories and you talking about those stories about your parents, like, what have you learned being a parent? What have you learned from your kids?
man, it's to what you and I agree with you 100%. When you get older, you start realizing the value and what your parents have done or tried to do in just their lives. And it's unfortunate that it takes us to get older where we stop pushing back on our parents or questioning our parents. Because again, I was growing up thinking your parents were superheroes and they did no wrong and they knew all the answers and this is just the way it was. And we know now as parents, there's no manual for that, right? You got to figure
Mhm.
you have a good upbringing or a certain upbringing. Sometimes you can take bits and pieces from that, implement that in parenting and how you raise your children in your household. But like again, it's unfortunate that it takes us a while to recognize that, and then hopefully we'll be able to express the gratitude and appreciation to our parents before it's too late. But I took a lot. I think my foundation of what my family set, but also what they afforded me to gain. I got a lot of exposure to certain things. I was exposed to a different world because my dad saw it that he wanted me to go to a private school, be in a different environment, not just the community that I grew up in. So just that experience alone helped me understand the importance of exposure and just being open to the world and not just the community that I was in, and just helping my kids with that information, helping them with that. And then some things that my parents did that I would never do with my kids, right? My parents were the parents that said, you ask the questions because I said so. There was because
Yeah,
else. And then I would get beatings like it was no tomorrow, whippings, and I never hit my kids, and I explain more to my kids, right? So it's just having that open dialogue with them. So I've learned what not to do and what to do. But I think ultimately foundation that was set for my family. Being, living with integrity, right? Living with honor and having respect for others and yourself, right? And just all of those things, and just being a good human being. Humility was huge in my household. And I think I was fortunate, and thank God, having a profession that I've had, professional sports, and going through that and having that humility, it helped me out so much, right? It helps me, it makes it more enjoyable for me to be around, and not being who we've seen before, those assholes that once they make it, they forget where they
Mhm.
get, what other people are like, and that respect aspect. So I've never lost that. And my parents gave me all of that I try to do the same, implement with my children.
Why do you think that happens at a certain point? Because I see you at Scotiabank Arena all the time. You're always interacting with fans and um, just people all over the stadium. And I was even talking to a friend of mine today who met you this past season at Scotiabank Arena, and he was talking about you. And just from that one time that he met you, still loves and talks about you just from that one interaction. Why do you think sometimes as people that when you get to a certain status you switch up a little bit?
I mean, it depends who you are. It depends on your makeup. It depends on how you view people. It depends on how you view the world. And I was a guy that was very shy, and it would be 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I'm always going to give respect. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to do certain things, but I may not be so communicative. I may not talk so much. I may not be so engaging. My friends used to always laugh at me and say, "You're standoffish. You're not the most approachable guy." But 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I didn't have the same feel. I didn't have the same understanding of the world, right? So now I do enjoy meeting people. I do enjoy showing appreciation if somebody has that level of respect for me or appreciation for me, and it's cool. It's not going to hurt you, but at the same time, and not coming down on other people that may not have that same approach. It could be anything. Again, it could be their makeup. It could be a bad day. It could be anything going on that day. But unfortunately, sometimes people start smelling themselves when they get a little cash and notoriety and a little fame. People will smell themselves, and people will flip the script on you. So I think at the end of the day, we all got to recognize and respect people as being human beings. And sometimes when you're a human being, you're going to have those bad moments. You're going to have those times that you may not want to talk to people, or you may, again, flip the script. So now it's up to the other person to handle it accordingly, right? And
Mm,
not, I guess, make so much out of it. Some people are who they are, right? And
mhm,
I've decided a long time ago, and I was placed in a right situation with a good upbringing, that this is how you treat people. You don't treat people like they're a, um, a fly by the night relationship. Make things meaningful, right? If you,
mhm.
introduce yourself, look them in the eyes, shake their hand, show respect. So it's not just a transaction. It's a meaningful relationship that you can take with you, and you can carry with you for the rest of your life.
Mm. So at what point did you start to understand that you're beginning to excel in basketball, and this looks like this is an area that you want to be in for your career?
And I don't, people talk to me about it. I come up, luckily, coming in Philadelphia at that time, we had a lot of guys that were very successful professionals. They came back. You got the chance to witness them. You got a chance to speak to them. But for me, I was never, it was a dream to go to the NBA. It was a dream to go to college and play, but it wasn't a reality until it actually was there. Like, I always just played ball with my friends, and we never discussed the NBA. Like, we might discuss it as fans, but that wasn't a goal, that wasn't a dream, that wasn't something we was trying to attain. We were just out playing ball. But then over time, you start seeing, some certain friends go a different direction, and you stay the course, and I stayed the course, and I got better, and I start seeing results after time, and things start happening. And then, next thing you know, you're in high school, you're doing well. Next thing you know, you're getting recruited. So all of these things start giving you a little ammunition and a little fuel to continue to go farther. So you start getting recruiting, you like that attention. Then you actually get some offers and some scholarship offers. You choose a school, like, oh, wow. Then you start over again. But then you start seeing some, progress and start getting better. And then you start seeing teammates do well and you're liking that. Next thing you know, your name get called in the draft and now you're in the NBA. But for me, it wasn't a reality. Like we were brought up to say, yo, what's plan B? Basketball can't be your main focus. You got to get an education, you got to be a good person, you got to do all these things because you're not making it to the NBA. So that wasn't really a reality for us until it actually happened.
What was that first conversation with your family like after you got drafted, and what was the actually before you even got drafted, right? What was the conversation like before, leading up to that draft? Because obviously, this is a life changing moment, not just for you, but for your family as well, right? So, talking to your parents, your siblings, what kind of things were you saying? Because for to me, like when you watch somebody in the NBA, even being around a guy like you and others as a broadcast assistant for the Raptors is still surreal for me, right? Because you um like for a lot of people, there are many people that see the Toronto Raptors in the NBA game and they've never been to an NBA game in their life. Like most people I know, the large majority of them have never been to an NBA game. They might watch it on television or they might come to a game, but they're sitting in the nosebleeds, right? Or they're in the stands, but they will, the large majority of people, they will never get to interact with an Alvin Williams. They will never get to interact with another NBA player or broadcasters. I do that on a daily basis, all the time at this point. So it's still surreal for me because I think like sometimes how the hell did I end up here? I mean, I know I wanted to be in this atmosphere, but still to be around a person like you, that's surreal. So you going to the NBA and having that moment where it changes not just your life but your family's life. Before you get drafted, what is the conversation with your family?
Well, man, and we've been talking. I've been over to your crib. We done broke bread with the family. I'm different, dog. Like I'm different, and not in an arrogant way, but there weren't any conversations. There were. You go about your life. We go on about our life. I love basketball. I love my
Mhm.
family. I love being home. As much crap as I talk about Philadelphia now, I love Philly. Philly was me, and I didn't talk about that. My parents didn't care about anything about the NBA. They cared about it from his aspect because they knew that was a dream of mine, and I was working hard after a while to get there. Because again, it wasn't until my junior year where I really saw the reality. I had a teammate, Kerry Kittles, and he used to come back after he graduated because he played for the New Jersey Nets, and I was like, man, I'm
Damn good player.
very good player and one of the best players I've ever played with. And I was like, damn, man, if he can make it, I played with him a year ago. Maybe it's a reality. So you start getting that idea. But as far as my talks with the family, nothing changed because again, I was fortunate, man. I never had to leave the household for anything. We weren't rich, but my parents made sure we had everything we needed, right? And if we didn't have it, then we realized we didn't need it and we dealt with it. But my dad sent me to private school. I was around very wealthy people. I was I was staying at some of the biggest houses. I've seen some of the nicest cars. So anything that you think the NBA right off the bat provides, the material,
Mhm.
I already saw that. I didn't have it, but I saw it. And I was exposed to certain things. My dad, after he left working for at DEA for 27 years. He worked at Major League Baseball as in the security department. So I was around professional sports in my teenage years. So I was seeing agents, I was seeing pro athletes, I was traveling. My dad had an understanding of that world. So nothing was a shock to me other than my dreams about to come true once my name got called. But when you talk about my family didn't treat me any differently. Yeah, our lives changed because everybody around you think there's a certain thing. But I was making $125,000 my rookie year. That was my minimum contract. And once they took taxes and all that crap out of it, I didn't wasn't making anything. So I was living at home till 3 years inside the NBA. At my third year, I was still living at my parents' home in a basement where I grew up at. So it was very regular. And I tell kids today, you guys are playing this sport to become an NBA player. I played this sport just to have fun, have friends, and that was just my family, my mom and dad would take basketball away from me. If I didn't do my homework, if I got bad grades, basketball's gone. If I disrespected or didn't do something in the household, basketball gone. If I broke curfew, basketball's gone. And they're not taking it from me from a day or two. It'd be a month before I can go outside and play or go to the next game. So everything was enjoyable, but everything was appreciated. So my family didn't give a damn about who I was, what my name was, what school I went to, and what team drafted me. Everything stayed the same, man. And I think that lends to who I am still today.
What do you think you would have done if you weren't a basketball player?
Well, my major was I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted
Mm.
to be a teacher. But that's just one of the things growing up, go to school all the time. That's something I see all the time. Being a teacher, the interaction between teachers and students, and that was something. I didn't want to be a police officer, but just being a teacher, being an elementary education, that was my major in college. So that was something that I wanted to do. Fortunate enough for me, I still lived out my dream, and I still get an opportunity to teach now through basketball. So even some broadcasting stuff, I like to break a game down and teach certain things sometimes from my analyst eyes. So even when I have my camps, I still get a chance to teach. But without basketball, elementary education was my major.
Was there any part of becoming a pro that was hard in regards to adjustments? Whether it was on the court or off the court, family, friends, anything like that?
Nope. Um, College really prepared me. College prepared
Mhm.
for the pro game because that's you go into college as a teenager and then you leave as a young man. And through college sports, being at Villanova, man, I learned so much. I learned getting benched. I learned how to do time management. I learned how to interact with the rest of the student body or some donors or doctors, officials, the school, the head of the school, head coaching, play against great competition, play with great competition, just forge some great relationships. So everything that happened in the pros, that was easy after college, after 4 years of college. The only thing that was the challenge was having so much free time. Having so much free time. You practice for 2 hours in the pros and you're done. The day, unless you have an appearance or something, you're done. But you have to figure out what you do with that idle time. And I think back now, being 50 years old, is so much more I could have done, right? That could help me. But going into the NBA, that transition was seamless. Man, leaving the NBA was the hardest thing I had to do. And, I always said the three things going from high school to my freshman year in college,
Mhm.
parent, and transitioning from the NBA back to your civilian life, challenging as hell, dog. And almost didn't make it, man. I don't know if I almost, man, I'm not talking about my life, but it was very challenging day in and day out during that time when I was retiring.
Why?
Man, first of all, I wasn't ready to retire. I thought that, I was going to play, I don't even know, so many more years. I didn't think that my relationship with the Toronto Raptors at that time would end the way it ended because of, the team was transitioning and we had new management and they were going a different direction. And I was comfortable enough and confident enough that, I was going to be a Raptor till the end, and it didn't happen that way. And then come to find out my knee was a little damaged, but I could still play. So I had to deal with the politics and the business aspect of it. And that's what made it really frustrating. So that's pretty much when I packed it up because the game that I loved and I would die for, it wasn't returning. It wasn't giving me my returns the way I thought it should or I
Mhm.
get. So I ended up just packing it in. But once I did that, I wasn't really ready, come to find out. And it was just hard, man. Like everything I did, Mike, was for basketball at that point. When I went to sleep, it's because I had a game or practice in the morning. Whatever I ate, I had to eat because I got to get ready for tomorrow. When I woke up, I had to wake up because I got a game or whatever. So everything was predicated on basketball. And once I didn't have basketball, I didn't have to go to bed at any time. I didn't have to wake up at any time. I could eat whatever I wanted to eat. So just like natural life skills that basketball made me answer to, I didn't have it anymore. So then it was just something that my dream had ended. And that's what I tell young kids now, man. Don't let your dream become a nightmare. Make sure you manage it the proper way, whether it's financially, whether it's relationships, business wise, having an understanding, and never again, never lose yourself because it's all over. Once it's over, if you become somebody else, it'll humble you, and you'll have to go back to that person you were originally.
I'm writing some of this down, Alvin. You're putting some good stuff here for me.
Oh
Okay.
man,
But like now that you say that, because don't let your dream become a nightmare. I think that's probably going to stick with some people. Um, you've kind of felt like you lost a sense of purpose, or
oh definitely. And I tell you this, and I tell you, family solid as a rock, education solid as a rock, finances solid as a rock, all decision making solid as a rock. But I was missing something, and I was missing what I ended up realizing I played since I was 5 years old, right?
Mhm.
And again, not just for the pros. I would have played basketball for free. So when I'm missing that piece, and I'm like, damn, and I'm not ready to stop. I'm not ready. I'm ready. I did a lot of rehab. I put myself through back-to-back surgeries. I sacrificed a lot, which that's what I'm used to. That's what I'm supposed to do. But when it ended, I just wasn't ready for all that. I wasn't ready to stop having surgeries. I wasn't ready to stop doing rehab. I wasn't ready to stop playing on the court. I wasn't ready to stop competing. I wasn't ready to stop seeing my brothers in the locker room. I wasn't ready to be home 24/7, 365. So so many
Mhm.
ready for. So that was the hardest transition. I just remember one time talking about my dad, and I remember being out one of them nights out, had some drinks, and I remember calling my dad. It's probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, "Dad, I just wanted to let you know, man, I love you." He's like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm just out. I'm on my way home." So we talked, we expressed ourselves, but that was 2 o'clock in the morning. He's asleep, and his son call you and tell you he loves you, and things aren't going so well for him, right? So he gets worried. By the time
Mhm.
I don't know where I went after I made that call, but it wasn't straight home. So I end up going home. Man, my dad's sitting in my living room waiting on me. It's like Mike. He's like, it's like 3:30. He's sitting in my living room. Was like, yo, man, you all right? And at that time, I was married. I was going through some marital things, man, like separation. My daughter was just born. So not only that
Mhm.
stuff personally, I'm going through my career's changing personally, and I'm just like, damn, man, I'm trying to figure it out. But I remember my dad again being there, and I was saying all that to say solid family, solid, and all these things, but I still had my issues. So that's one of those hard transitions. But I'm through it now. But it's one of those things that was very, very challenging, man.
Now I'm sure when you mention all those things and you combine all of them, right? There's going to be probably some days, especially like you mentioned, you're going through marital issues and you're coming out of the NBA and all that kind of stuff. There's probably going to be some days where you don't feel like getting out of bed. What do you do there? How do you combat that? Because I'm sure you look at your life now and you think back to that and you see how things have changed, right? What do you say to somebody, or what advice can you give to somebody who's currently dealing with that?
Man, I mean, with advice, I mean, therapy is helpful for some. It wasn't for me. Um, it's hard, man. And you know why it's unsettling? Because unfortunately, I feel that the former athlete, the former athlete, not even former pro athlete, anybody that's been in that situation, that's made that commitment and dedicated themselves and played anything, have done anything, when it's over, a lot of times you got to lean on the people that's been through it. And
Mhm.
nobody around me, everybody, oh man, you still got money. Oh man, you live in a big house. Oh, you got a nice car. Oh, your parents are still like everything was easy for everyone else to push it to the side, but it wasn't really many people I could talk to. So I just had to deal with that. I felt like through on my own. right? And that's
Mhm.
my mom being that rock. And I remember laying in bed, to your point, laying in bed, just sleeping around. And I remember seeing a commercial that came on TV talking about depression. And it said that you can't self-diagnose yourself, but some of the symptoms, laying around all day. And Mike, no lie, I jumped up, got dressed, and said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not depressed. I'm not that." So that's something that my mom would do, but I didn't take it a step beyond and go and have therapy or talk about things. And really, I just kept it to myself. I kept it to myself, but I saw the way I was living wasn't right. I used to wear this damn blue sweatsuit every day, dog. Only reason I stopped wearing a sweatsuit is because I dropped bleach on it and it faded.
Oh man.
That's the only reason. My sisters, people were worried about me. My sisters, people would spend time with me, but again, I was going through some personal stuff as well, right? I'm a first time father. My daughter Madison was just born, and she's not even 1 year old and trying to figure that out. You know, being separate,
Mhm.
all of those things, and then my career. So again, at that phase, I would tell people to take one day at a time. But if they need to seek out help, find somebody that's been through it and talk to them about it and be vulnerable. You got to be open. You can't hold anything back. And I learned later in life how to be more vulnerable because I realized everybody's going through it. You're going through something, right? You may not have been a pro athlete, you may not have made millions of dollars, but at some point there was a transition in life and there's a challenge in life that you had to get through. So everybody go through it. So I learned how to be more vulnerable and open to a degree.
And I think the times that we're living in here make it even, I don't know if I should say more difficult, but all the things that you're saying, and even this thing with the younger generation now with social media as well. I think social media makes it tough for people as well because I feel like a lot of people at this point don't really understand that social media, what they're seeing isn't real. Like it's different than what reality actually is, right? You're looking at people's highlights. You're looking at people just things that are scripted, things that are stories, and then they look at social media, and then they think that's how these people are actually living, and in reality, they're living a completely different life, right? And so I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough, and for these young guys who are playing in the NBA right now, I do think it could be a little bit more challenging in certain ways. Like I look at this guy, for example, who used to play for the Raptors, Jonte Porter,
Hmm?
right? And you look at a story, a guy like him who's getting an amazing opportunity. You've seen him firsthand because you were sitting right there watching the guy play on how you can destroy your life pretty much overnight at that point. Um, but what I'm saying is a lot of people don't really understand and know what people are actually going through up here because to a certain degree, when we look at NBA players, us as just fans and people in general, we kind of look at you guys like robots, to be completely honest with you. You're big, you're fast, you're strong, you make a lot of money. Therefore, because you have a lot of money and you have a nice house, a nice car, things can't really hurt your feelings because who cares? I mean, you still got money,
Right.
right? That's
Right.
a lot of the time, to be completely honest. That's how people look at guys who play in the NBA or the NFL. They just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's unfortunate. And then the other part is unfortunate where the athletes sometimes they'll mask those feelings by saying, "Man, I got money. I'm rich. I don't care. You're just jealous," or whatever the case may be. But there's a human element to that that's going to hurt. It hurts when people you try to do your job or you want to do it at the highest level and you don't succeed or you get criticized. That hurts. That hurts when you get evaluated. Now it takes a few that they know how to wipe it off and keep moving and keep pushing and understand on the main goal. But they are human beings. They're not robots. They're human beings. And even the guy you said, DeJounte Porter, right? He made a mistake, right? But his life isn't over, right? His life he has to pivot, he has to change, and he has to do it. He has to deal with it. But it's an opportunity like every other human being that does something that isn't publicized, right? But is publicized, so he has to deal with that aspect. This generation, this is their social media movement. This is what they're used to. This is what they have to deal with. Us, myself, it would be very hard for me to try to live in this world because that's just not where I come from. That's not my makeup. I don't appreciate it. I don't enjoy it. So I don't know even know how to manage it. But this is a different generation. But I will say one thing at the end, they're humans. So at some point, we're going to make mistakes. Now it's about how you bounce back from it. I remember my freshman year getting to college. I'm the golden child. I'm the good guy that went to private school from the city. Did it is good family, 2-parent household, sisters. Everybody's at my game. I go to my first time away from home, and not even away from home because Villanova is about 20, 25 minutes away from where I grew up. And I get in trouble. I get into a fight on campus. I get arrested. I get suspended for a game. We lose the game. We don't make it to the tournament. All of these things is publicized on TV, and it's like I'm going to court for different charges that I know, like you're reading these charges, you're watching your mom cry, and I'm like, what the hell just happened to me overnight? A decision I made overnight impacted the rest of my life. But for me, it impacted me in a good way because, as an athlete, as a black man, you got to learn how to deal with and resolve issues other than physicality or violence. So
Mhm.
if somebody does something to me now and say something, I'm not going to just lose my cool and go up in a mouth or get into a tussle because I saw what that did to me at the age of 18. And it put a lot of pain through my family. It put a lot of hurt for my mom. And it made me uncertain. It made me embarrassed. I was scared. I was uncertain. And I hurt somebody on the other side. Or I could have been hurt. Whatever the case may be. I compromised our family. But I learned from that. So nothing is going to make me compromise my family. Nothing's going to make me lose my cool where I could do something and end up in jail or anything like that, which I was facing in 18. But I learned from that. And my life isn't over. I didn't destroy my life. I actually enhanced my life, fortunately. So again, being a human being, learning from your mistakes, and hopefully these young guys they can learn from their mistakes because the picture is drawn for them. And unlike us, they have exposure, they have accessibility to see these things, to read these stories about financial hardships, about socially doing things the wrong way, whatever the case may be. And hopefully they can learn from it and move forward and not go through the same things that we did in the older generation as the older generation.
Well, those are important stories, man, because a lot of the time, there are some things that happen to you in life. Um, even the bad things have their own, way of making things better for you, like you just mentioned, right? Because at least you got to learn something at that point in your life at a younger age, because it could have been probably worse if it happened when you were older, maybe. I don't know. I don't know which way to put it, but the point
Yeah,
is there are certain things that happen, right?
when you get older, there's more consequences and there's less
Mhm.
to bounce back from that. And it could have been, hey, my NBA career could have been over. It could have been that. It could have been, this guy, he's a marginal player. He's probably not playing right now. He's just this, and we don't need that type of dude on our bench or in our locker room. The perception, and that's what the NBA is based upon. That's what reality perception is reality. 9 times,
Mhm.
right? So it's just different phases in life where you make decisions and you learn from it. Now, the key is to learn from it. And, I had some great examples. I had great examples in the household. I had some great examples on the streets. I've had some very close friends make some decisions that they're not home today. And this when we were 17, I'm 50, they're still away. And I saw early on, I did not want that for my life. So you got to learn how to take this information and execute it and process it as well. So you got to have that mental capacity.
Now, how do you stay out of that stuff though, Alvin, at that point? Because you mentioned like some of them can do some things at an age at 17 or 18. And as much as our parents can instill things in us, we still have to have the ability to go out into the world and make decisions, right? Regardless of what our parents teaching us. How did you make sure that you were always, not always, but how do you make sure for the majority of the time that you were in that real world, as I like to call it, that you made those right decisions. Because like you, we've all seen people who have made one decision, two decisions, and that's all it for them.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, again, a foundation at home. I had to go home, right? I had to go home. I had to. My pop was a cop, so he had long arms out there in the world, in the city of Philadelphia. So it wasn't too much that I was going to do. Or at least that was my mindset. If I was going to get, if I did anything, I was going to get caught. But I had to go home. So I couldn't come home smelling like alcohol. I couldn't come home smelling like weed. I couldn't come home, late. I couldn't come home not so I somebody to answer to. I had a lot of friends that didn't have anyone to answer to, whether their mom was working overnight, they were holding the house down, no father at the house. So they could do certain things. I had a strict curfew. Like I couldn't miss curfew. I also was sent to another school and I was around a different demographic. That demographic had their issues, and I had actually more exposure to more negative things as far as drugs and things that they did that I didn't have in my neighborhood. I didn't see the things in my neighborhood at a young age that I saw at the private school that I went to at a young age in seventh grade. So, but I also knew also I was lucky. Sometimes you make that decision and you're like, damn. Well, remember Boys in the Hood where when
Hmm.
man got smoked and he's in the back of the car and he
Oh yeah.
there and his dad was there and he's like, oh, where you going? But he made that decision at the end, was like, hey, let me out the car, man. I don't want to go on this ride with y'all. And his friends respected him enough to say, you know what, this is not for you. So it was a great combination for me. And again, back in the day, that's how it was. That kid played basketball or that kid plays football. He's a good kid. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Williams, they don't play no crap. So we're gonna have to answer to them at some point. In the neighborhood, actually, if they saw you going the wrong way, it's been times that I've been in fights and a neighbor will come out and say, Al, are you okay? And they would take me and let me go in their house or make sure I was all right or I could get home safe before I got jumped or whatever the case may be. So it was a real good community back then as well. But I was lucky, but I also had a home base that I could always go to and that I had to answer to.
No, that's fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up because it makes me think back to when I was a kid as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the stuff you're saying is completely right. I understand a lot of it. And when I hear you tell that story, I think about myself, but it's kind of the things that you mentioned on the other side, because that's where the issue was for me. And that's when I was kind of spiraling out. I didn't graduate high school till I was almost 20,
Mm.
because for me, I was with the single mom, right? Because when my parents got divorced right after I was born, my dad eventually left the province, then left the country. And so my mom was at work all day. If she would go to work at 6:30, she ain't coming back till 10. And that's every day. That's Monday to Friday, that's Saturday and Sunday. And then I had an older sister there. She was gone because she went to school. At that point, it's just me at home. And so I'm drinking all the time. I'm smoking all the time. I'm in games. I played all throughout high school, but I also coached since I was in grade 9 and going into grade 10. I'm drunk in practice. I'm drinking during school. I'm getting high now at this point as well. I skipped almost 200 classes in one semester.
Mm.
In one semester
In high school,
in high school.
right?
That's almost 3 months worth of school in one semester, right? And so
I see
when
why you were 20 when you left school.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and guess what? A lot of those friends that I had who were doing the same thing ended up in a very different place than I ended up right now, right? I'm sitting here doing the show, keeping it real, talking with Alvin Williams. But it's like you mentioned, things can change for the better or for worse very quickly. And I'm lucky I had my elder brother and I had some of my coaches who were coaching me, who I'm still, very close with till this day, and now their kids as well. Man, things can go good or bad depending on life, man. And lucky enough, like you mentioned, I had that mother and grandmother, and my relationship with my father has gotten better as I've gotten older. But man, things can go bad pretty quickly.
No, they can, man. Life is so interesting, man, and there's so many variables in life, as we all know, and not to simplify it, but it's times where I drive now, and I'm like, man, as beautiful as things are, it could go left like that, and life altering, life changing forever. It could be a
Hmm.
could be an action while you're driving. It could be like now you get to this age again. I see former athletes passing away, heart attacks and cancer and stuff. And it's growing up in the inner city and having friends that you were with a week ago dead because of violence. And that was the one thing where I looked, but like, man, I can't allow myself to normalize this behavior growing up in the city and normalize somebody that's in the streets or somebody that come from a single parent home and certain things, their lives go in a certain way and they get killed through violence and things like this, and not just freak accidents or natural natural death, but violence was something where I was like, man, I can't normalize this behavior. I can't expect that people say, yo, you're not supposed to live past 21 if you grew up in this environment anyway. You're lucky if you do these things and all of these things. So I've always tried to keep a straight head on. But as I get older, it's like, man, anything can happen. I remember just driving
Hmm.
years ago when my mother passed away, getting that phone call and just talking to my mom. Now she had health issues, but I mentioned she was a rock, and you would never know anything was wrong with her unless you just grew up knowing her health issues. But talking to her, can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. I said, Mom, I'm coming from Utah, I'm flying in. I got to go get my knee checked out, and then I'm coming right up there to see you. All right, can't wait to see you. So happy to hear your voice. And get the call the next day before I go to the knee to go check on my knee. My mom's passed away. So it's like those things, phone call and instance can change you. That's why in life, man, you gotta. It's so sensitive that you have to make sure you make the most out of it and have you and really appreciate it and take the time out. You mentioned talking to people and around the arena. Talk to somebody on Monday at the game. You may not see him on Wednesday. So it's
Yeah.
and that I really cherish now. And I'm glad that I'm at a point now that I can really truly value it and have a true understanding and not just have it for myself, really articulate it and express that to my children and others around me.
No, I hear that, man. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you for doing this, brother. And you know what? Maybe there will come a day where we can actually sit down and have a chat in person and keep it a bit more real. You know what? Damn it. We should make that happen at one point.
Let's
We
do it.
should down in person, have this conversation. And you know what? I wonder if we can talk to some other people about some of these kind of things as well. We should grab some of these Raptors and learn a little bit more about them as well.
It's more enjoyable, man, when you could be authentic and you can have the dialogue between guys and women and people. And because again, if you think I'm a robot or you think they're robots, they're gonna start acting like that. They're gonna be a
Mhm.
mirror of what you show them. It's just one of those things. That's why it's so hard to really communicate and really truly have a relationship with an athlete because you need to be protected. And in their
Yeah.
defense, you got to protect yourself because so many things out there that can derail them for their ultimate goal. There's so many people trying to knock them off of their square, knock them off their pedestal while they're there, and it's only a short time. So they got to maximize that. So what you do, you isolate yourself from potential harm, and you
Mhm.
yourself around people that can help you get there. But some of those people aren't real. Some of those people are yes men. Some of those people are just transactions waiting to happen, and you don't really get the authentic conversation, the authentic relationship. So and I know I talked about it through my transition. It was very hard, but what I did gain was real relationships. You know who's who. You find out those same people that was around when you were making millions of dollars and you were doing things. You can get them access to games. A lot of them ain't around no more. And now you're
Mhm.
around the real people that love you for who you are and what you can do for them. So I would love to sit down and have these conversations. This is a therapy session. Also, man, hats off to you, man. You explained, I made a joke about you in high school, but being able, we go through our challenges, being able to get through all those things and overcoming those things with your challenges and being where you are today, dog. And now I got to meet my man. I'm over your crib chilling. Hats off, man, by sticking with it, man. because there's a lot of people like that that's not nowhere near doing what you're doing. You got your own thing going on. So I'm proud of you, man. And thanks for having me on.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Because I think sometimes, when you start getting older, you start thinking of the definition of what is it to be successful? You know what I mean? Like, what is it to be successful? And I started to think about that. And, from a guy who doesn't have or grew up with a lot of money and still doesn't have a lot of money, I'm doing decent for myself. I got myself a wife and 2 kids, and we're living pretty well. But, to me, I started thinking, what does it mean to be successful at this point? Like, from a guy who graduated high school at almost 20 and then didn't go to college for a few years after that, pretty much just bumming around. Went to college. It's kind of basketball that really saved me because I knew I wanted to do something in regards to basketball. I just didn't know what. I've always been good on a microphone, good at speaking, good at public speaking as well, doing presentations and speaking to large crowds and things like that. But I never really understood or really didn't know what I wanted to do. Kind of still don't now, but I'm figuring it out. I do a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just having that love for basketball. I started coaching when I was 14, 15 years old. Did it while I was in high school playing as well. I coached kids from, the age of 2. I coached kids when I was 14 or 15. I was coaching 14 or 15-year-olds as well, which is tough because they're wondering why you're coaching them and you're the same age. And so, it's I don't know. My life has to do with a lot of basketball. My brother was the number 2 rated player in Canada at one point when I was in high school as well. And so he had a lot of basketball people around him. We moved from Montreal to England, came back. Then we came from Montreal, came to Ontario. And so things were different. There's just so much going on, but basketball was always consistent. So
Yeah.
that always kind of helped me and keep me grounded because even though I was kind of a little bit of a troublemaker, not really a bad kid, but making a little bit of trouble here and there. Basketball was kind of always the thing that was like, well, I didn't want to disappoint this coach. I didn't want to disappoint this mentor. And so, even though all these other things were going on outside of school, I was still on the court, still playing, still coaching, still running my own basketball camps in different cities around the GTA and doing all these different things. And so, anyway, it's been a journey. It's still going and it's great. You live, you learn as you go. And hearing your story, I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people. And as I mentioned with you as well, your story's nowhere near to finishing either. You're just in the middle of it
Yeah.
right now. So it's still going, which is fantastic, right?
I think when you talk about success and how you identify it, how you define it, it's on you. And I think that's something I've told my sisters, I've told younger people, don't let somebody tell you if you're successful or not successful. It's how you define it and what are you trying to accomplish in life, right? It's not success doesn't make you you're not wealthy and successful. I know a lot of wealthy people who are miserable people. They're miserable in life and health wise, relationship, all of these things. And we know that. But I always think it's key to, you identify what success looks like for you. Now you don't let yourself off the hook. You set that goal and you attain it, whatever by all means. But no one can identify what success looks like for you. Another thing, you know this as well. Like you just talk about, public speaking and the media, be really careful with your words, right? And how you use them when you describe yourself and talk about yourself and even with others. Heard you say, you graduated after 20 and then you were bumming around. Like, nah, you wasn't bumming around. You were lifing it up. You was figuring it out, going through the journey.
True.
So I think when we talk about ourselves, let's be more gracious, you know what I mean, and have these things because again, we're going through life. We're going to F up, we're going to mess up, we're going to do all of these things, but it's all about bouncing back and moving forward and then giving that message forward, putting that message forward with our young kids, your 2 youngins and my 3 younger ones. So it's one of those things where we just look at life and how we identify and keep pushing through it because again, we're all going through it. We're all
Mhm, mhm. Hey, man. Alvin, I appreciate you, my brother. You let me know when you're coming into the city.
I'll be
Okay. You always know I got some food ready for you when you're here, man. You
I'll
let me know.
be soon.
All right. Appreciate you, my brother. Thank you,
All right,
man.